Welcome back to the Prep Pros YouTube channel. My name is Matt, and in today's video, I'm going to show you every single math equation you need to have memorized for the ACT, because unfortunately the ACT gives you almost no equations. So what you see in front of you here on the screen is the equation sheet from my brand new ACT math book. If you really want to prepare for ACT math, it is absolutely the best book out there, so I'd recommend you definitely grab a copy. There's a link below. But let's just get into this. Now, as I go through this video, we're going to go through the equation sheet, and I'm also going to highlight the different types of stuff you should know depending on your math level. There are certain equations you'll have to worry about if you're really looking for like those super high 33, 34, 35, 36. There are also some more core equations everyone needs to know. So starting here with the stuff in chapter 3, we all need to know the basic geometry stuff. So chapter 3 is about angles. Remember, our vertical angles right across from each other, say here x and x, are always equal. The ones right next to each other like x and y are all the same. And also makes you understand this one right here with our parallel lines. It's very important. They love to ask you about parallel lines. The other one we could see is this sum of interior angles. So if you ever have a figure with, say, n sides, so if I have a pentagon that, say, has, not a very good one, but 5 sides, I can find the total interior angles by doing 180 times n minus 5. So memorize those guys. Of course, the more important stuff you're really going to see on the test are shapes. We have to memorize every single equation you see on the sheet here. One important thing for triangles, we see our 1/2 base times height. Everyone remembers base and height for a right triangle like this, where you go, cool, like this is my height, this is my base. Remember, we can also use it like this, where we have the base as this entire bottom, and we use the height as like an altitude. Other important ones here to memorize that a lot of students forget. Make sure you have your circle equations memorized. Those are pretty straightforward. You'll see those a lot on the test. Trapezoids can come up. A lot of people forget this equation here. Same with a kite. If this comes up, it's also an important one to know. Otherwise, knowing your cube, your rectangular prism, right circular cylinder are also ones I see a lot of students forget. Other stuff we can see here, of course, the good old Pythagorean theorem. You guys probably remember that. If I say a squared, you're probably like plus b squared equals c squared. Remember, that's just for right triangles. Keep an eye out for these special Pythagorean triples, 3, 4, 5 right triangles, and 5, 12, 13. Those ones can help you out as well. In addition, for more advanced students, make sure you have our 45, 45, 90, and 30, 60, 90 rules memorized as we're going through this. Now, I actually didn't mention this at the start of the video, but you can actually download this entire practice sheet, or not practice sheet, sorry, equation sheet in the free trial to my ultimate ACT math course. So there's a link to that below. There's also one in the comments down there. So again, you guys can actually download this entire thing, so you don't have to just copy these all down as I go. Now, let me keep going here. So we can also see what's called the third side of the triangle rule. This one's kind of a tricky one, but imagine if I have, say, 2 triangles that have a length of, let's say, 6 and 8. The question might be like, what's the longest the third side of a triangle could be, or what can't it be? Well, our little rule here is the sum of the 2 shortest sides of the triangle have to be bigger than the longest side. So as an example here, the third side of this triangle has to be less than 14. So I'll call the third side x, has to be less than 14. Because if you imagine lining up 6 and 8 in a straight line, they add to 14, so it has to be less than that to then make a triangle. Or if I fold this all the way over, where 8 is now our longest side, so let's say I fold it over this way. I'll erase that stuff and make it prettier here. Try it again. So if that longest side was 8, then the shortest side here has to be bigger than 2. Because then 8 is our longest side, and our 2 shorter sides, 2 plus 6, have to be bigger than 8. So again, a little less commonly tested. The main ones from here you got to know is Pythagorean theorem, and again, all of this shape stuff is really, really important to memorize for all levels of student on testing. All right, with line stuff, make sure you guys memorize all these equations. You got to memorize how to find the slope, how to find the midpoint, memorize your point slope form, or you might use the plug into y equals mx plus b. But make sure you know how to go from points to an actual equation of a line, and of course, our good old distance formula. For Chapter 8 number theory, there are some basic stuff to know. Make sure you know that integers are whole numbers. Remember, prime numbers are numbers like 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. If I keep going, it's 13, 17, 19, and so on. They're numbers that are only divisible by 1 in themselves, and 2 is the only prime number. Rational numbers are numbers that can be expressed as a fraction or an integer is fine. Irrational numbers are numbers that cannot be expressed as a fraction. Very common ones in the test might be a root, like root 5, or a value like pi that can't be expressed as a fraction. Something's undefined if it's divided by 0, and imaginary numbers are ones that have that unit I. We'll get to those more a little bit later. Now, also make sure you know what the greatest common factor, least common multiple are. I know these are throwback to like middle school math, but remember the greatest common factor. Factors are smaller, so the greatest common factor is basically if I have a set of numbers, the largest positive integer that divides into all of them. So if I have, say, 12, 18, and 30, the greatest common factor is 6, because it's the biggest number that divides into all three of those. Oppositely, multiples are bigger. The least common multiple is the smallest positive integer that is divisible by the numbers in a set. So the least common multiple of, say, 2 and 3 is 6, because it's the first number that 2 and 3 both divide evenly into. Other times I might ask you about these weird 1, 0, no solutions questions. So for equation to have one solution, let's say if I have something like 6x minus 5 equals 8x plus 2, we could actually go through and solve that equation. So if we see the coefficients for the x terms are different, like here 6x and 8x are different, that's going to lead to one solution. The constants, the numbers, could be the same or different. Now, zero solutions are going to occur when the x terms are the same and the numbers are different. So if I had something like, say, 3x plus 2 equals 3x minus 5, this can never be solved, because if these are the same and the numbers are different, that means there's going to be no solution. Oppositely, if everything's identical, let's say 3x plus 2 equals 3x plus 2, then no matter what you plug in for x, this is always going to be true. So that would be our situation for infinite solutions. All right, percentages, make sure you know how to do basic percentage stuff. You can use the good old is over of, percent over 100. You could also use the decimal trick where like 40% is like 0.4. So if you want to find 40% of 80, you can do 0.4 times 80. Both ways are fine. Also, make sure you remember how to do percentage greater and less. They love this on the ACT, so make sure you're comfortable. If I'm saying, oh, I got this new shirt for 20% off the original price, and the price was $120, make sure you know how to do that. And also memorize your percent change equation that we see right here. With relation to proportions, these ones aren't as common, so these are more, worry about these, if you have more time to prepare, or if you're more of a higher scoring math student. Direct proportions, our equation you have to memorize is y equals k times x. Indirect proportions is y equals k over x. Now, they love averages on the test. Make sure you know, first of all, our basic average question, this one should probably be easy. Our average is found by the sum over the number of items. Weighted average is also huge, especially towards the back of the test. So a weighted average would be, say, something like, oh, I don't know, let's say we have, I take, let's say I run for 10 minutes at a pace of 7 miles per hour, and then I speed up for the last 8 minutes of a run, and I go at 11 miles per hour. The question might be like, what's my average speed? So we basically have these different averages and these different weights here, which are the time. So if I want to find my average speed, again, 10 minutes, 7 miles per hour, 8 minutes, 11 miles per hour, we're going to take our values, we're going to take our average times weight, and here the weight is minute, plus average times weight, and divide it by the total weight, which here is the total amount of time. So I would divide that by 18, and that would get me straight to my answer. So a really helpful one to solve a lot of those like last 10 or 15 weird averages questions in the test. All right, for chapter 13, make sure you know all of our exponents and roots rules. Memorize, try it again. First of all, here, if we have exponents in the power, we add them. If we divide exponents, we subtract them. Anything to the 0 power is 1 over that to the positive power. Anything to the 0 power is always 1. So also make sure, remember here, a power to a power is multiplying. So a to the x to the y is a to the x times y. And then this fractional one is really important to memorize. They sometimes put it on the test as like a more challenging or kind of a quiz question. So a to the x over y is the same as the y root of a to the x. Also make sure you remember our root rules. Remember, if I have a root like this and they're multiplied, I can split it. If they're divided again, I can split it. All right, other important one to understand is logarithms. Now, this is a topic a lot of students have trouble with, but make sure you remember that log base a of b to the c is the same as basically going in a circle. So it's a to the c power is b. Other one that I want you guys all to memorize is this change of base rule. It makes it super easy. So log base b of a equals log a over log b. So if you have a question where it's like, hey, what is the value of log base 4 of 8? You can just type in your calculator log 8 over log 4 and hit enter. Makes it super, super easy. The rest of these log rules that we see here and here are really advanced ones. I only want you to memorize this if you're a really strong math student. In my math book, I have different levels where I label everything as level 1, 2, 3, and 4. These I would say is a level 4 question, which are again for students aiming for like 33 to 36. If that's your goal, this is a really advanced topic. Not heavily tested, but one you do need to know if you're trying to get those tippy top scores. Another one of those kind of more advanced topics is natural logs. If you've never learned these before, they're not going to be in the test very likely, but natural logs have a little base of e down here. All right, quadratic stuff, of course, make sure you have your quadratic formula memorized. This one is pretty obvious in the test. If you ever seen answer choice, let's say answer choice A is like 2 minus root 5. Anytime you see an answer choice like this, you better think, ooh, that's the quadratic formula. Also make sure we know vertex form of a parabola. Vertex form is y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Not as common. This is the most important thing from this little chapter here to memorize. Another more advanced one is our discriminant rules. Again, I would say this is like a level kind of 3, 4, students who want 30 and above. This is a really advanced topic. So the discriminant is this portion here. And again, if you're not super good at math, don't worry about this. It's not for you. But my advanced math students, the discriminant tells us how many solutions we have. So if b squared minus 4ac is positive, we always have 2 real solutions, because in the quadratic formula we get the plus and the minus. If it's equal to 0, we have 1 real solution. If it's negative, we have no real solutions or 2 complex solutions. But again, this is one of those topics like the log stuff up above. If you're watching this video and you're kind of cramming for math, say coming up this weekend, like don't worry about this. This is a really advanced one. But again, if you're going for that 33, 34, 35, do make sure you understand how this works. All right, trig is a huge topic on the test. First of all, make sure every single one of you guys knows your SOHCAHTOA. If you have trouble with trig, it's a really good one to brush up on and review this week because you absolutely will see some basics with your SOHCAHTOA here, and you're also going to see these inverse trig functions. If you haven't learned these before, definitely take the time to learn these because they will almost guaranteed to be on your test. Other one, make sure you know this one trig identity, sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. If you ever see a sine squared or a cosine squared, it's almost always using this. Other ones to memorize, definitely make sure you memorize your law of sines, law of cosines. Again, for any students trying to score 27, 28, 30 and up, you're almost guaranteed to see a law of sines or law of cosines question. It's a more advanced topic a lot of students struggle with. If you haven't learned this before, you can definitely try and understand these a bit, but these are a little bit harder if you've never done them before. If you have, make sure you memorize these because they often don't give you these equations on the test. Other ones, more advanced ones as well, are the periods. So again, if you've done graphing with trig, remember the period of a sine, cosine, secant, or cosecant function is 2 pi over b. Tangent and cotangent is pi over b. Again, if you're not as strong at math, you haven't done that at school, don't worry too much. You're not as likely to see that. I would definitely prioritize learning this and learning this if it's any trig stuff you haven't done yet. All right, matrices, you definitely need to know a lot with matrices. Make sure you know how to do matrix addition, subtraction, matrix multiplication. If you don't know how to do those, you can actually, in the free trial to my Ultimate ACT course, I'll put a link below. I actually have an entire chapter of that from my book, and in the free trial it includes the entire video, or all the videos of me teaching everything. So I'll go through and teach you all the different concepts, how to multiply matrices, how to add matrices, how to find the determinant, which we see our equation here we'd have to memorize, and you actually also get access to this entire chapter from the book and all the practice questions. So if you've never learned matrices, this is actually an easy one to learn, but it is a topic that they'll either be early in the test with addition and subtraction, which is really easy, or they'll put them on the end of the test because they're hard, but they're actually pretty easy once you know how to do them. The problem a lot of students face, you may have never done matrices before. But if you have, or if you go to that stuff in the free trial, make sure you memorize this determinant equation. If it comes up on the test, it's actually super easy points, even though the ACT counts as a hard question. Other stuff we got to know, we got to memorize our circles, ellipses, hyperbolas. Circles, everyone's got to know this. So remember, for a circle, our equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Circles are pretty common in the ACT. Definitely make sure you have this one memorized. Now, also for my more advanced students, the ones I would call like my levels 3 and 4 in my book, ellipses we want to know. We also want to know horizontal and vertical hyperbolas. Ellipses are definitely more common on the test, so make sure you understand how the equation works for how to draw an ellipse. And if you haven't seen them before, ellipses are like these kind of weird oval guys. Hyperbolas are a little bit less common on the test. It's when you see like these double kind of parabolas. And again, if you've never learned these, you can start with ellipses. They're much more common, and then go to hyperbolas if you have time as you're studying. Probability stuff, just make sure you know the basics. Remember, probability is your desired outcome over all possible outcomes. And then basically 3 rules to know for probability. Number 1 is if we're talking about all these possible outcomes, it always has to add to 1. So that's rule number 1 to make sure you know. Rule number 2 and 3 are also really easy, but a lot of people mess these up. If we have 2 probabilities, let's say we have 2 events A or B, the probability that A or B occur is we add those. We do probability of A plus probability of B. The probability of A and B occurring is when we multiply those probabilities together. So again, or you add and you multiply. Another one that's good to know is the expected value. Again, a little bit more advanced, but this is one if you're really aiming for a higher score, make sure you know how that one works as well. Other stuff, try it again. Chapter 23, make sure you know factorial. If you've never seen this exclamation point, it's actually pretty easy. If you see something like 5 factorial, all it's telling you is you take that number and you drop it and multiply all the way down to 1. So 5 factorial is 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. 3 factorial will just be 3 times 2 times 1. So in case you've never seen this before, it's actually really, really easy on test day. Otherwise, make sure you understand what a permutation is and a combination is. Your calculator has these NPR and NCR buttons for most of you. If it doesn't, you can memorize the equations. Remember, permutations are where the order matters and combinations are where it does not. All right, arithmetic sequence. Remember, arithmetic sequences are adding and subtracting between common terms. So if I had something that was like, say, 2, 5, 8, 11, this is an arithmetic sequence. We're adding 3 each time. Geometric is multiplying. So maybe it goes 2, and then it goes 6, and then it goes 12. We're multiplying by 2 each time. For advanced students, you should memorize these arithmetic sequence and geometric sequence actual equations to find the nth term. Again, this is for my kids aiming for 30 plus. Make sure you memorize those. They're not super common, but in case they are, you're really screwed if you don't have these memorized. All right, complex numbers. Make sure we know, first of all, how these work. Remember, I is equal to -1, which means I squared. Sorry, I is equal to the root of -1, so I squared is -1. That's the main stuff to know. Also memorize the powers of these numbers because they repeat. There's some other ones here that are more advanced. Complex conjugates is more advanced. This value here is more advanced. Same with these guys down here. The absolute value for these numbers, the distance, these are really advanced. I would say these are like my level 4 ones. They're not super commonly tested. So you don't need to worry about those as much, again, unless you're a really advanced math student. All right, for inequalities, main one I want you guys to all know is, remember our algebra rule. If we multiply or divide by a negative number with an inequality, we have to switch the sign. So if I had, like, say, -3x is less than 9, if I divide both sides by -3, I have to write this as x is greater than -3. We're switching the sign. Other stuff for graphing inequalities, if that comes up, remember, for greater than or less than, we draw a dashed line because we're not including the values. If we have greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, we draw a solid line. And then the shading. If it's greater than, we shade above. If it's less than, we shade below. And for more advanced ones, if we have circles or ellipses with shading, if they put those at the back of the test to be mean, some of those last 10 or 15 questions, that's when we're going to have to shade outside. Outside for greater than, inside for less than. All right, exponential growth, decay, make sure you know your basics. This is not as common of a topic, but knowing these two with stars here are the ones that, again, most of you guys should be comfortable with. Make sure you know the basics of how to do exponential growth and decay. These are my more advanced ones. Same with this one. Don't worry about those as much. Just make sure you know the first two, again, unless you're more advanced. Arc sectors as well, not super common. An arc is just a portion of the circumference, so make sure we know how to find that. You can just memorize this equation here. It's the same as the proportion. Arc to circumference is the same as the angle over 360. A sector is the exact same except it's part of the area of a circle, so we can use this equation here. Also, make sure you know how to do vectors. If you've never learned vectors before, it's also a pretty quick one to learn. Make sure at minimum you know how to add and subtract vectors. You understand we have this weird standard form and this component form. If we're adding or subtracting, we're just putting like terms together. Last couple ones here. For basic statistics, make sure you know what the standard deviation is. You never have to actually calculate standard deviation on the ACT, just know the concept. So even if you're not good at math, this concept is pretty easy. Standard deviation is a measure of spread. So data points that are farther apart have a higher standard deviation. Data points in a set that are close together have a lower standard deviation. If you know that, you can probably get almost any question involving standard deviation on the ACT correct. For my really advanced math students, a super rare thing is the empirical rule with normal distribution. This is with a normal, like a bell curve, and it's about the distribution of data. So rule here is 68% is within 1 standard deviation, 95 is within 2, 99.7 is within 3 standard deviations of the mean. And finally, for some miscellaneous topics at the back, Binomial theorem in Pascal's triangle has come up a lot recently, so if you've never learned this before, again, if you're just a regular math student, not super advanced, don't worry about it, but if you are, again, going for those high scores, make sure you understand how Pascal's triangle works. The way this works is if I had something like, say, 2x plus 3 to the 4th power, and you're asked to find what's the coefficient for like the x squared term, you have to know how to use Pascal's triangle and expand these binomials. Other ones we could see the vertical asymptote rule sometimes in the test. Remember, vertical asymptotes occur when the denominator of a rational function is equal to 0. So you should just set the denominator equal to 0, and solve for x. That'll tell us where the vertical asymptotes are. And finally, less commonly tested are our horizontal asymptote rules here. Again, not overly concerned with those, but you can memorize those. So like I said at the start, or kind of in the middle of the video here, you guys can actually download this entire sheet. So it is going to be, again, in the free trial to my Ultimate ACT Math course. At the front, I will put the sheet there for you guys to download. So you guys can download this and use it as a way to go through and basically just kind of memorize all of these ones for testing. It's really, really important to have the equations memorized because a lot of times in the ACT, you're not given the equations, so you have to know these for testing. If you're ready to really improve your ACT math score, I would recommend ordering a copy of my new ACT math book, which I just published. This book is absolutely now the best math book to prepare for the ACT and covers all the topics I discuss in this video and much, much more. To make the book really easy for you to use, I created a 4-level system. The levels are based on your math skills and scoring goals, and each level has its own comprehensive study guide. All you need to do to get ready for the ACT math test is take a practice ACT to find your level and then follow the study guide. As you work through the book, you'll see that the concepts in the book and all the practice questions are marked with the levels, so you'll know exactly what topics to focus on to improve your score. And the best thing about this book is that there's a video course to go with it. My ACT math course is over 30 hours of videos where I teach you everything from my book. I'm going to teach you how to solve every single question in all 35 chapters and also give you the same lessons that I teach in private tutoring sessions. So to show you how this works, I'm going to scroll ahead. You'll see there's tons and tons of videos here that I've recorded. We're going to go all the way to chapter 12, which is going to be included in your free trial to the Ultimate ACT math course. Now, once we get to chapter 12, if you were going to do this chapter, what you would do is you would go ahead here. You can see all the different lessons that I will teach you. There are also the levels that tell you the difficulty in those lessons. So if we're going to start at the very start of the chapter here, I would go ahead and just click the start button on here. Now, as you can see on the screen, I'll be teaching straight from the math book and going through and teaching you everything you need to know. We're also going to go through some example questions. Now, once you've finished all the lectures, at the end of each chapter, you're going to complete a problem set. After you complete the problem set, you can go to the answer key and you can see on the left side here that every single question has its own explanation. So it makes it really efficient for you because you can just watch the videos to exactly which questions you miss. So let's say if you had trouble and you couldn't figure out question 27, you just click right here, and then you can watch me go through and show you exactly how to solve this question. So if you want to try out this course for free, there is a link to my free trial in the video description below. The free trial includes 3 full chapters. The math book and course overall are all designed to make ACT prep math feel as easy and efficient for you as possible. So I certainly recommend that you go check it out. Other than that, if you have any other questions about anything ACT related, please let me know in the comments down below. I'll always take time to respond to those. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe. More ACT content every single week. Other than that, this is Matt at Prep Pros. I will see you guys next time.